Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Argue About Plants, the podcast for people who love plants.
Just not always the same ones.
I'm Steve Aiken, the editor of Fine Gardening Magazine.
And I'm Danielle Sherry. I am the senior editor at Fine Gardening Magazine. And I'm super excited about the topic today, Steve. Best small trees. Do you know why I'm so excited?
No, please tell me.
Oh, I thought you were going to make some kind of short joke because you're small. Ha, ha, ha.
Now, when you do the work for me, I don't have to do it. So.
Well, because I was thinking this might be one of the most evergreen and most applicable topics that we have because everybody needs a small tree, regardless of the size of your property. I mean, even if you just have a small courtyard garden, I feel like a small tree, provides that structure and that focal point. If you have a large garden, a small tree almost serves the place of a large shrub or could be, year-round bones of the garden. Like everybody needs a small tree, don't you think?
Yeah, the good thing about a small tree as opposed to like a medium or big size shrub is that a tree will go up and then bulk out.
Yes.
Whereas a shrub will just bulk out from the ground. So.
Yeah, I feel like it's an instant focal point that you just need.
If you choose the right tree.
Yes,
it
true.
It could be pretty boring.
So do you want to know the hands down? Like we could just stop with this one tree because it's the best one ever. You're not going to have anything better on your list. It's you know it, you love it. It's Cercis chinensis Donny Golf. It's Donny Golf, dwarf redbud, Chinese redbud tree. This is, all right, if my garden burned down tomorrow and I had time to dig out a tree that's been planted for 7 years in my garden, this would be the thing I would rescue. It's the best tree ever.
What's so great about it?
So it's got silver bark, looks great in winter.
Silver?
Yes, it's like a silvery gray color. It's delightful. Okay, I'm gonna start with its least exciting qualities. Really dense branching structure that's kind of this, wide vase-like structure. Gets these beautiful magenta pea-like flowers all up and down the branches that bloom right out of the bark of the tree in early to mid-spring. The thing looks like a firework. It's incredible. Then it puts on these beautiful heart-shaped leaves that are about the size of my hand. They're giant. Not that my hands are giant, but that's big for a leaf. I do not have man hands. Don't look at me like that. I do not have man hands. Look, no man hands. Sing. And then the leaves turn a bright yellow color in fall, which isn't crazy amazing, but it's really, really cool. This thing is I've grown it in great soil. I've grown it in crappy soil. I've, had it in previous residence. It's an awesome tree. It's zone 6 to 9, so not a huge zonal range. And it only gets 10 feet tall by 10 feet wide. But again, it's got that vase-shaped structure to it, so you've got a lot of room around the base that you can actually plant underneath it as well. Boom. Take that.
Well, why did you pick that over any other red buds? Because what you described sounds like most red buds, other than the silver bark.
I think it's diminutive structure, because most red buds get considerably bigger than 10 feet by 10 feet. That's in the 20 to 25 foot range. I love all red buds. I really do. I love, Cercis canadensis, which is the native red bud tree. Love it. It's beautiful. But this one is just, the flowering is so much more intense and the structure is just so much cooler and the bark is just that much more silver. It's incredible.
It's the chinensis does have bigger, more puffier flowers than our native species, so it is more remarkable in that way. But Donny Golf sounds like Johnny Football, or it's like some bro dude who likes playing golf.
Really, I thought that you were going to make the reference since you are shortly going to Ireland that it sounds like a town in Ireland on the eastern coast, Donny Golf.
It does too, yeah.
Right? Where you sip whiskey from the local distillery.
Yeah. You were so eager to launch into Donny Golf that you never asked me what I thought about small trees. I might have some thoughts on
I didn't take your feelings into consideration?
No, you didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I can, I'll get over it.
All right. Pouting time over. Come on, let's keep this rolling.
Okay.
Tell me about yours.
I like small trees because I have an acre on the edge of the woods and I'm surrounded by tall trees. But I need something that's going to layer the garden. It's going to bring the eyes down, and you can do that with big shrubs. But small trees also fit the bill. And like I said, they're not as oppressively bulky as a lot of giant shrubs can be.
Yeah.
And I think it's a necessary layer that a lot of people are missing. And there's so much more fun to play with because you can actually, because they're small, you can kind of interact them. They're not just you're not just looking at the trunk.
True.
Like you can actually see the foliage and the structure and all these things. You don't have to, stare up at it and only see it in the winter.
Yeah.
So that's why I like small trees. Yeah.
Okay. I think all valid points. Well done, you. Given all of that, what rises to the top of your list? Perhaps, I'm assuming you do have some small trees already in the yard. So what rises to the top as of right now in the Aiken?
Well, one
yard?
I bought not too long ago. I have a problem with the sun, the afternoon sun cutting right through the window and beating down on my back while I sit there to try and eat dinner. And I hate that, and we can't put up curtains because my wife doesn't believe in curtains. And so it's awful. It's hot in the summer and I hate it. And what does a gardener turn to solve all problems? A plant. There must be something I can use to block the sun. So I needed something that was tall and narrow. Because it's going to be close to the house. It can't be too massive. It doesn't have to be that tall either. I wanted to get to size rather quickly so it can start, blocking out the sun.
Making you less cranky.
Making me, there's only so much any plant can do. So I bought Styrax japonicus evening light, which is a Japanese snowbell.
I've never heard of that cultivar before.
Zones 5 to 9.
Okay.
Gets to be 10 to 12 feet tall, maybe about 5 feet wide. It's very columnar. It's like an upright vase. Purple foliage in this strongly purple, glossy purple in the spring, and it fades over the course of the season. Mine's still hanging in there, and it gets these white little. They look like little pearl earrings for flowers that open up into almost fuchsia-looking. In form, not in color.
Gosh. I got excited there for a second.
Like the way a fuchsia flower is pendulous and has like the star-shaped thing going on. So it gets those. It still has them now in September, and they've been there all along. I think they start in early summer, but just a wonderful upright tree.
That's so cool.
The flowers are supposedly fragrant, although I haven't sniffed them. Super easy to grow because I keep waiting for it to die, and it hasn't died yet.
So question, when did you plant this tree? This season?
Yeah, I planted it in June.
Did it keep that burgundy or that purple color on the leaves all the way through this hot summer?
It still has it.
That's pretty darn cool.
And I don't think that's normal. I think normally it fades to kind of like a murky grayish green kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's still nice and purple.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. I can't wait to see pictures of that.
Styrax japonicus evening light.
Cool.
I saw the description of it, and what I normally do is like, oh, I should buy that, and then I wait, and then a year goes by, oh, I should buy that, and then, but I read the description of this, said, oh, I want it. I immediately went to the website of my favorite local, super cool woody plant nursery called Broken Arrow in Hamden, Connecticut. Go there if you like plants. Go there. They had it. I went there. I bought it. I brought it home. I planted it.
And you've been good about watering it because we know you.
Well, I have one of those watering bags around it.
Those
so
gator bags.
I've been relatively okay about filling that up.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to see photos of that, especially the fact that it held that color through the summer, and we had a really hot summer. So,
do you not recall the photos I showed you a few hours ago, or are you pretending that you just never saw them?
Wait.
Yeah, you forgot. You forgot.
Or I haven't looked at those emails yet. Anyway, you'll be able to see them
if you
go
online. In my office. You said you didn't want the one with the hose.
Oh, for some reason I didn't think that was that plan. I thought that was. Oh, it's very purple.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. All right.
You were trying to pretend you didn't see it.
So if it makes any seedlings, you know where to bring them.
Yeah, to other parts of my yard. Yes.
No,
that'd be great.
So I'm going to give throw some love to a native plant next, or a native tree. And this is Franklin tree, which is Franklinia alata mea.
Alamantha?
Yeah, that too. But Franklin tree is awesome. It's got this very cool historical story that I won't launch into.
It's named after the turtle character.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Franklin the Turtle, the cartoon. Yeah. No, absolutely not. That is not who it's named after.
Oh.
Apparently, it had something to do with Benjamin Franklin, but
Never heard of him.
That's a rumor. That's a rumor. So it's a southeastern United States native, a very, very cool plant. There is a gorgeous one. This is not a tree that I currently have planted at my house, but I've been for many years admiring one that's at a farm that's close by my house. And it's got these long kind of blade-like leaves that are a little bit shiny, bright green, kind of a silvery brown bark and foliage, the bark is silvery brown. Then all of a sudden, kind of into the dog days of summer in August when there's not much going on as far as, trees and upper canopy, this thing starts getting these white camellia-like flowers. They're large. The flowers are, golf ball or more sized, white petals on the outside, and then this really golden, beautiful center to them. They're sporadic, but they're so big that even just having sporadic bunches of them on the tree makes it really, really eye-catching. And then this thing launches into fall color, continues to bloom through the end of summer into fall, starts getting fall color that is brilliant. Looks like somebody lit the tree on fire. Red, orange, yellow. Large leaves, so it makes a presence, and it's still blooming, which is incredible. I stopped this morning and actually took pictures of it to be able to put on the website because it's just so cool.
I got out of there before the police arrived.
Yes, I did, stopping at this property that was not mine. But zones 5 to 8, so it's got a pretty wide zonal range to it. Yeah, you're looking at me like, meh.
For some reason, I thought it was only hardy to zone 7.
No.
And it has a reputation for being finicky.
It's what apparently when I looked it up, so it's zones 5 to 8, but apparently it likes a moist, well-drained soil, which is, the golden condition that is so hard to find, but a moist, well-drained soil.
But that's what we say for pretty much all plants, but this one actually means it.
Yeah, this one actually means it, and fertile as well, which could be because it is on this piece of farmland and it's just off of, a field that probably gets a lot of free manure.
How far from the coast?
Well, East Haddam, Connecticut, so
are the temperatures moderated by the shore breezes?
I don't believe so because, East Haddam's a half an hour away from the coast. So it is not. It is not. And it's in a fairly exposed area as well. So beautiful, beautiful tree. This guy apparently gets 10 to 20 feet tall, depending on if it's happy in its conditions, and 6 to 12 feet wide. Really, really nice tree. Oh, did I mention that those beautiful flowers, they're fragrant? They're stinking fragrant, and they're sweet, and you can smell them.
Stinking fragrant or fragrant? Because that's not a good thing.
Well,
my daughter's soccer cleats are stinking fragrant.
But is stinking always associated with bad? If it stinks?
It's hard to stink in a good way.
Can it stink pretty?
I don't think so.
I feel like that would be a good album name, Stink Pretty.
Well, that's Carrie Underwood's Cry Pretty.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Oh, geez. TM, trademark, whatever. Now I'm in trouble.
But if someone said to you, you stink, would you be like, oh, they must mean that in a good way?
Well, if they said you stink pretty, I'd be like, thank you. But if you left it at just stink, yeah, no, that wouldn't be good. But it stinks pretty. It stinks very pretty, very sweetly scented. But yeah, just a really nice tree. And I feel like, yeah, let's give some native love out there to some native trees.
So I knew you were doing that. So yesterday when I was shopping for another small tree.
Oh, yes.
Just because I needed an excuse to, I ran into this tree that I had never heard of. Before.
I had never heard of this.
I think it's been out there for a while, and there's sources for it all over the country, which is interesting. But I never heard of it. It's called Gordlinia. X because it's a cross between two genera. You've got Franklinia and Gordlinia lasianthus.
I've never heard of Gordlinia ever.
Yeah, Apparently, somebody named Gordon discovered it, or maybe it was named after the Sesame Street guy.
Could be.
But yeah, it's a cross between these. So they're both natives. But it's only hardy to 7, 6B, and I might be 6B, but like a bad winter.
That's
getting
it.
that thing established, it's going to croak.
That is it.
But it has, I guess, the best of both worlds. I don't know anything about Gordlinia, so I don't know what it gets from that.
When you showed me the picture, the stems, the branches of it looked very Edgeworthia-like, almost fleshy and kind of flexible.
Yeah. But when I showed you a picture of the flowers, you're like, oh yeah, Franklinia.
Yeah, and I thought
that's
that you had
exactly
taken
what it looks
photos
like.
for me, and I was so excited. But you're like, no, I'm doing that
Well,
plant.
the 3-inch blooms, and then there's a cultivar called Sweet Tea, which has 5-inch blooms
That's
on it.
huge.
Yeah, that's big, and they're supposedly fragrant. That's why you get Sweet Tea on it.
That is
But
very
I
cool.
don't recommend it because I don't know anything about it other than you can buy it at Broken Arrow Nursery, which is 2 mentions for them in this episode.
But cool to mention that too, especially since we've never heard of that
Yeah,
before.
and they're both southeastern native species, so or genera.
So we've got some native love going on. Well, we'll throw photos up of that too because it was really cool looking. To me, it looked like a Franklinia and an Edgeworthia cross paths. It was very, very cool.
One plant that I will recommend
That you have grown.
that I have grown,
Okay.
Cainothus virginicus.
Beautiful.
I always want to call it old man's beard, but I think that's a clematis. It's fringe tree.
Yes.
And oftentimes you see the non-native version of that. I always go with the native one just because. I mean, I think in this whole native versus non-native thing, we do have to plant some natives, and I would prefer my trees to be native.
Yeah.
Because of all the benefits that they can provide, and also that frees me up to be not as native with my perennials, where more interesting options exist.
Well, right. And I mean, trees, you really are planting for the next generation, because trees are I assume that the trees are going to hang out long after I am gone. Perennials, probably not. And the way that I water and take care of them, probably not.
Yeah, the next homeowner is just going to come and scoop them all out anyway.
Exactly. But
why are we doing all this? Or no? But fringe tree, about 12 feet tall, and in spring it looks like it's covered in white fringe, white fluff. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing about this tree really, but it's just amazing flowers in spring.
Get some really nice fall color too. Yellow, like bright yellow.
Like a nice fall color. For me, it's been late to leaf out so that it scares me. Like, oh, I killed it. Oh, this is the year. Oh, that one didn't come back. And then, poof, out come the leaves, out come the flowers, and just an amazing plant. Zones 3 to 9, moist soil, right?
Yeah,
Like that's,
I know.
I always
I'm
look
out.
when I'm looking for plants, especially things like trees. I'm always looking for, well, how am I going to kill this?
Yeah.
Like moist soil, I'll forget it. I'm going to have to water it, so
That's
I'm
it,
out.
yeah.
Or it needs something.
Or it needs
And so
sweet soil, and I have acidic soil. Yeah.
So it's always like, how am I going to kill this? How am I going to kill it? What's going to happen to it? And then if it survives, my checklist there, then it's worthy of inclusion.
So where did you plant it then? If it needs wet soil.
No, just moist soil.
Okay.
And I just kept it. I kept it watered till it got established.
All right.
Made sure this is back when I was a little more
Diligent.
young and enthusiastic.
Instead of old and pessimistic.
I didn't water it all the time, but it hasn't rained in a while. Better go water the Cainothus.
There you go. And it's paying off now. It's paying off. Okay, so you did one that you didn't plant in your garden, but then you followed up with one that is in your garden. This one is also in my garden. My husband calls it the Dr. Seuss tree because it kind of looks like a Dr. Seuss tree, and it's Larix decidua pendula, so it's a weeping European larch, and absolutely cool, quirky, twisty, turny, kind of crazy stems. Looks like me on a bad hair day. It's like meow, all over the place. Gets in spring these really, really beautiful light green needles that burst forth. It is a deciduous conifer, which seems like an oxymoron here, but it does get those needles, and they do drop for winter. But before they drop, they turn a bright yellow color. So it's really, really cool. The structure of this tree makes it an instant focal point, and it has kind of this see-through quality. So I'll put some photos up of the one in my garden. I sited it poorly. I put it right in the front and put it right on the edge of a stone wall because I'm thinking, oh, it's going to weep over. But it's really, really hard without training to get it just to do the weep thing. So mine kind of has these shadonkulas up high and then weeps down low. But it's cool because it is kind of airy that you can see through the rest of the garden. And yeah, just a really, really cool plant. It zones 3 to 7 too, so it's got a really, really wide range. And 8 to 12 feet tall. I had looked up. Mine right now is maybe 6 to 7 feet. And
how long have you had it?
About 6 years. It was one of the first things I planted when I moved in. And I got it from a really cool nursery up in Vermont, Caddy's Falls Nursery, which is no longer in existence apparently in Morrisville, Vermont. But I was assured that it would do well in a cold situation. So
well, yeah, it can't take heat, obviously. Zones 3 to 7.
Yeah,
heat.
Exactly.
Every time I see a larch, I fall in love with it. Like, I want a larch.
So
Have I
cool.
ever bought a larch? No.
No?
Because I'm afraid that I will choose the wrong one or something like that. I can't commit to it. It's like the pretty girl that you love from afar, but you do not have the guts to walk up and say, like, well, would you like to dance with me? You're like, I can't ever make that
You
commitment
can't make the
to.
leap?
I can't
Make
do
the
it.
leap, man.
I can't.
You should.
What if I get the wrong one?
Well, the payoff is if you
Where am I gonna
choose the
put
right
it?
one, as your wife knows, right? You chose the right one. The payoff is good.
But I'll never choose the perfect place for it, and so it will just sit in a pot and then it will die.
Well,
and then,
clearly, I did not choose the perfect place for
I
it
don't
either.
want to be like you.
But yes, you do, Steve.
No,
Just
I don't.
admit it. Yes, you do. But it's a very cool plant, and I've never regretted a day having planted it. So yeah, it's a winner.
Okay. Speaking of twisty and turny,
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the plant that I bought yesterday. Didn't know it existed until 24 hours ago, maybe 26 hours ago.
I love how this episode inspired you to go spend a bunch of money at the nursery. In preparation, of course.
Is that wrong?
Job first.
Is that wrong? No,
Any excuse.
I cut down about 12 pretty much dead trees on the edge of my property. I have to replace them with something. I don't want these to be trees that are 50 feet tall that I don't ever see. And they're not doing the job of blocking, me from seeing my neighbors, or more important, for my neighbors seeing me. So I need them to be, on the shorter side. So I think it was it last episode I talked about black gum, black tupelo, Nyssa
Yes, you
sylvatica.
did. Yes, you did. Because I wanted to know if Van Morrison's song Tupelo Honey was about that.
And it probably is. I think I said no at the time, but then
Yes.
doing more research, they say it's about that one. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Van has not weighed in.
Wait, can we just pause for a moment? Can you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Danielle, you were actually right"? I would like to hear you say that.
Until I hear from Van Morrison himself, who is not returning my phone calls for some reason.
I'm not getting it. I'm not going to get it. You are right.
I don't think the restraining order he has against me has anything to do with it because, it's just a phone call and an email.
Maybe I should reach out to him.
Well, you are more likely to get a response than I am. But Van Morrison has a new album out, so everybody go
All
buy
right,
it.
there we go.
So,
Another shameless plug. We're doing good today.
Right?
Yeah.
But we should do shameless plugs for people who sponsor us instead of just...
Feel free to call in and
Yeah.
we'll
Mr.
shamelessly
Morrison,
plug you.
feel free to... all right, so it's Nyssa sylvatica, Zydeco twist.
I've never heard of that.
Zydeco twist. Like, how can it be wrong with the word Zydeco in it with such happy New Orleans
Right.
music, and twist? And basically, it's a smaller black gum, 15 to 20 feet tall,
Okay.
zones 5 to 9. But the stems are bent and twisty, and everybody keeps comparing it to a Harry Lauderer's walking stick. And so I was just absolutely intrigued by that. It's going to be small. It's going to be cool. It's a native. It's going to have great fall color. Turns like plum tones.
What
in the fall.
What does the foliage look like for most of the year?
It's like a green.
But what are the leaves?
They're kind of
look
narrow.
like? Okay. Do they have like a
pointy.
serrated edge or anything? Oh, okay. All right.
And I think it's more wiggly than twisty and turny. But so it's
Can
young
you please define the difference between wiggly and twisty
wiggly
turner?
as opposed to twisty and turny. You know?
For those of you at
really
home that can't
Dr.
see
Susie.
Steve, he is now breakdancing whilst trying to explain the difference between wiggly and twisty.
Nyssa sylvatica Zydeco twist, zones 5 to 9, 15 to 20 feet tall and wide.
Kind of big.
Yeah, native to, well, and that's one thing I like about it, that it's stretching out too.
Yeah.
And it's going to take up room, but only 15 to 20 feet tall. That's not that tall.
That's true. Well, we didn't talk about that either at the top of the show, which we probably should have because
You should have.
Well,
You cut me off. I didn't even get to explain my bits.
Oh, gee. Well, go ahead. You explain what I was just going to explain since you.
Oh no, go you.
Okay. So in the grand scheme of trees, small trees, I consider to be probably anything 25 feet or less. What do you consider small trees?
I was going 20 feet, completely arbitrary.
Okay.
But
because full-size trees during their lifetime, we're talking 50, 70 feet. Yeah. So I feel like 25 is, so everything that we've pretty much picked today is under 25 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where it's supposed to max out.
Yeah, exactly. Over the lifetime of that tree.
But Nyssa sylvatica is native from Maine all the way to Texas. So
Really? That's interesting. Yes. I'm assuming moist soil?
I have no information on that.
All right.
Because that did not come up in my research. So therefore, I don't think that's a thing.
Okay, so it's not a thing.
And had I known it would need moist soil, I would not have brought it home because I'd been like, I'm not going to water this thing. I'll water it to get established, but after that, you're on your own.
That is true.
Yeah.
Zydeco twist, too.
I feel like we had the same exact talk the last time I asked about, last episode when I mentioned.
And you didn't do the research? So 2 shows in a row, you did not do the research.
No, I did the research. It just didn't come up as needing moist soil.
Okay, all right.
I've never given it any extra water, any of the ones that I've grown. But I just had this weird sense of deja vu. I'm like,
really?
If somebody does
we'll get
2
the
episodes
answers
in a row,
to that. We'll get the answers to that next show. Tune in next time.
Yeah, when you ask me the same question.
If we don't have the answers.
Does Nyssa sylvatica need moist soil? No, for the love of all that is holy, it does not.
Beep, 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 beep. Do you remember seeing this small tree that I'm about to talk about when we visited J.C. Ralston in the spring? It is variegated red horsenut or horse chestnut, excuse me. It's Aesculus carnii ario marginata. Did I do that?
You want to try that one
All
again?
right, ready? Aesculus carnia ario marginata.
Oh, you got it.
Oh, there we go. Woohoo! Zones 5 to 9. But do you remember seeing that tree when we visited?
I do not. There's so much to see down there.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, so, okay, this bodes well for it then. There is so much to see in that place, and this was probably my standout plant that I walked away with going, holy cow, I need one of these. So it's an Aesculus, bottlebrush buckeye, horse chestnut. It is compound palmate leaves.
Wait.
Large.
Is it a tree or a shrub? Are you cheating?
No. This is a tree. This is a tree. It is, no, this is a definite tree. You will find, it's a multi-stem tree. You can train it to be a single leader as well. It is. It definitely is. Don't give me that look.
What's the difference between a shrub and a tree?
Is this a trick question?
Shrubs tend to be shorter than trees, and they tend to have multiple stems.
By
so
that definition, any of these could have been shrubs, large shrubs.
No, all these have one stem.
No,
and
okay.
They're
so
shorter than.
Riddle me this: what is Amelanchier?
It's a tree.
Isn't that a lovely multi-stem?
It's
shrub?
A multi-stem tree.
Oh, so this is a lovely multi-stem tree. So much in the vein of an Amelanchier, this Aesculus is a lovely multi-stem tree.
How wide does it get?
So this one gets to be 15 feet wide, 15 feet
It's a big shrub.
tall. no,
Big shrub.
it's a tree. It's
Well,
definitely a tree. Because it kind of grows in more of like a lollipop fashion, too. And you prune away those suckers that come out. So
the things that make it a shrub.
Yeah.
And you train it into a single stem.
No, it's a
How
tree.
is this different from bottlebrush buckeye?
It's a tree. First of all,
Which is an awesome
this one,
shrub.
This one has smaller leaves by about 2/3, but it's still that compound palmate leaf. This one is splashed with gold on it, hence the variegated that you get in it. This one has red tubular flowers, a pale red tubular flower. Hummingbirds were going nuts on this tree when we were down there. It was really, really cool. And it's not often that you see a hummingbird going crazy over a tree. Unbelievable. I just thought, holy cow, this thing is beautiful. And you saw it. It was like a beacon from across the lawn. It was kind of on the backside of the event where they had the tent and everything. And I saw this thing that was kind of glowing. It was variegated. It had these almost a tropical-like appearance to it. And I beelined over there and took some photos of it. Did I say the zones already? 5 to 9? So 5 to 9.
Yeah,
I'm in the game.
Sounds like a great shrub.
It is a lovely tree.
Well, you know what is a tree, but has multiple stems.
You are such a pain in my ass.
Look, Betula nigra, Little King, sold as Fox Valley. Fox Valley is a trade name. Little King.
You mean shrub?
The reason why it's a tree is because it comes from a genus of trees.
Okay. So you're
whereas
saying
Aesculus is known for being shrubby.
So you're saying that it can't flow in the opposite direction.
I don't know, but I know I'm on thin ice now with the Aesculus, so I'm just going to backtrack
You totally
and move
are.
on.
You should stop it. This should be a call-in show. I want to call in a horticultural expert ASAP.
And they will, right. that Betula nigra, the river birch,
yes,
is definitely a tree. It definitely has multiple stems.
It does.
And Fox Valley / Little King. There's nothing wrong with the name Little King. Why do they have to trademark it as Fox Valley, which to me sounds like a suburban development? Yeah. It's
sprawl.
Little King sounds like it's like thank you very much. I'm the little version of the king. It's great. Like why you can't improve on that.
You cannot.
Yeah. So it's a river birch. It has peeling bark with like cinnamony, bronzy tones to it. It's like a creamy white bark that peels to a cinnamony thing.
Cinnamony?
So cinnamony.
Cinnamony?
Yeah. It looks great in the winter. With no leaves. With leaves on it, it also looks awesome. Just regular green leaves that turn. They have a nice fall color. They turn a nice yellow. Like pure yellow, and they're in fall.
They're one of the first things to turn too, which is kind of cool. That's when you know that the season change is happening. Yeah.
Native from Massachusetts down to Florida and out into the Great Plains. Native to moist areas, but supposedly does not need any extra moisture. Nope. So I've never watered it extra. The problem with this tree, though, is that I keep seeing it pop up in like Burger King parking lots.
Oh,
and and it's like one of those,
that's unfortunate.
Subway thing, but why? Like, what? It's not the tree's fault, and it can still be a great tree. The problem is that it's surrounded by red mulch and
marigolds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's a great tree.
And Stelladora daylilies, typically. Yeah. Well, all right. So maybe instead of going, ooh, we should give props to Burger King for, having a little bit of decency to plant something decent.
That's what it should be about.
That plant, or that tree rather, stands out in my head when we visited Mass Hort Society, which was up in, what town is that in? Wellesley, Massachusetts?
It's in that area, suburban Boston.
Okay, and there is a stately specimen of Fox Valley Little King river birch there, and
but being small, it can't be that stately.
Oh, it was stately because you know what?
Are you thinking of Heritage river birch, which is a taller version of this?
No. It was just the way
which is most certainly a tree.
No, this is how I'm going to throw the rest of the water that's left in my glass across the table.
HR has talked to you about that.
I am willing to sacrifice the microphone quality at this point. But no, it was just do you remember this planting? It was kind of the bump out of a bed, and they underplanted it, I believe, with bronze carex that really picked up on that cinnamony color of the bark. And it came across as stately, even though you're right, it was not this, tall beacon of a tree. It made it seem like it was, and it was stunning.
That's the perfect combo. I want that.
Isn't it?
I want to have that in my yard.
I can't believe you don't remember that from our trip, but yes.
I was probably too busy ducking the water.
Yeah, from the sprinklers. That's true. Yes. But yeah, I did take a photo of it. I have to put it onto the website when we publish this episode because it was a beautiful combination, really, really stunning. So that's a nice tree.
It's a nice tree.
Or large shrub.
And now, because everything sounds better with a British accent, here's Peter to talk about big trees.
Much of the talk in the gardening world these days is about smaller. Smaller spaces, smaller plants, smaller trees. But what about planting a big tree? Whenever I visit a property with a large tree dominating an area, its massive branches arching gracefully over the driveway, its gnarly trunk scarred with small injuries from its long life, I'm always enamored with the sense of place it engenders. Large trees can do wonders for our environment, from sequestering carbon and cooling a house, to providing a home for birds and food for insects and pollinators. One can sit under a large tree and read a book, have a picnic on its shade, or hang a swing from its branches, as I well remember from summers long past. And let's not forget, the song says, tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree, not round the dwarf blue spruce. You might be concerned that the time it takes for a tree to become large enough to enjoy is more time than most of us have. If that is true, think of the gift you are giving to members of a generation you might never meet. Many gardeners lament the lack of connection between today's youths and the natural world that surrounds them. Offer them a tree, and consider your planting and care of it an act of hope, a loving branch from one generation to the next.
Wow. Now I feel guilty for focusing the whole episode on small trees. The Tony Orlando and Dawn reference makes me feel better, though.
I don't know who any of those three people are.
Well, your loss. But I bet you do know who we have this episode on expert testimony. Let's have the rest of us find out.
Hey there, this is Paul Cappiello from Yew Dell Botanical Gardens in Crestwood, Kentucky. I'm out in the garden sitting under one of my very favorite small flowering trees in the garden, and that is the Venus dogwood. This is a hybrid of our West Coast native Cornus natalii and the Asian Cornus kusa, the Chinese or kusa dogwood. It's an outstanding plant for the garden. It grows about 25 feet tall, maybe a little bit more in width. It's got great dark green, slightly glossy foliage all through the summer. An outstanding fall color, mixes of burgundies, yellows, reds, and a little orange. But it's really the spring bloom that sets apart this tree from the others. The blooms come out with the leaves, so a little bit later than our eastern native Cornus florida, but they are absolutely enormous. They can measure 6, almost 7 inches in diameter, a clean, clear white, and they last for a long time on the plant, making for an amazing display. This plant was hybridized by Dr. Elwin Orton at Rutgers University. He's actually my plant propagation teacher when I was in horticulture undergrad at Rutgers many years ago. I saw him at a meeting one day, and he told me about this great new hybrid he was getting ready to introduce. And when he told me how big the flowers get, I told him I thought he'd been smoking too many dogwood leaves. But the next spring, I received a fax, no cover letter, no to or from, just a fax of a photocopy of a Venus flower and a ruler. And at the bottom of it just said, "So there." And I knew it was from Dr. Orton. So it's always been one of my favorites. It's a good, vigorous grower, a good adaptable plant for sun or part shade, and the blooms are just magnificent. If I could only have one small flowering tree in the garden, I think it would have to be the Japanese Stewardia pseudocamellia. Obviously, Asian origin for this species. It's not one you find all that often, but it's definitely one that's worth a little bit of a hunt. Growing up to somewhere between 20, 25 feet in height. In youth, it's sort of an upright, conical shape to it and gets a little more rounded as it ages. But it's a plant that has a unique flowering time and some really unusual characteristics. First of all, We'll start with the bark. One of the great traits of this tree is as it matures, it develops a spectacular exfoliating bark, kind of combinations of coppery color, a little olive green, some gray. Beautiful, beautiful bark that varies from one specimen to the next. Foliage is a nice, clean, bright green all through the summer. The fall color can vary from a mix of yellow, orange, all the way to fire engine red. Really stands out in the fall landscape. And the blooms are just delightful. They bloom late in the season. So this is a later in the summer. When I grew this in my main garden, it bloomed typically in June, even into early July. In warmer, earlier season climates, it can bloom late May into June. Small to medium-sized white blooms, looks sort of like a small white camellia with a yellow center, about 3 inches in diameter. Now, each individual flower lasts just one day and drops off, but it continues to produce blooms for several weeks in the garden, and so you always have this nice gradual opening and shedding of blooms, and if you have them sited nicely, they can create a beautiful carpet of those spent white blooms underneath the branches of the tree. A little touchy to grow, needs a little bit of TLC, is not a good plant for hot, dry, or miserable conditions, but if you've got a place that's got reasonably good soil where you can keep it reasonably well irrigated, it'll be a plant that'll pay you back for many, many years to come. I don't think you can have any conversation of small flowering trees without including a cherry. And Prunus okame, the okame cherry, has been one that's just grown and performed fabulously in the garden for many, many years, and it's just a good standby for early bloom. A complex hybrid of Asian species, okame has been sold in the trade for many years. As a young tree, it forms a distinctly upright, columnar, pyramidal tree, single or multi-trunked. With age, it will widen and get a little bit more rounded in growth habit. Kind of fine texture in leaf, a nice sort of semi-glossy, grayish red cherry bark as the tree matures. But it's the early spring blooms that really make a show here. Beautiful pink, each individual flower fairly small, about 1 inch across, but the entire tree just covers with these things. They're really born in tremendous numbers. They bloom for about 2 to 2.5 weeks, and what I love about it is one of the most frost and freeze tolerant plants in bloom. At Yew Dell, we've had this thing in bloom and had the nighttime temperatures go down to something in the high teens Fahrenheit, and you would never know it the next day. So unlike some of those early deciduous magnolias that get blasted by just a degree or two below freezing, okame cherry can handle down through the 20s, even into the teens, and come out the next day looking like a champ. Good plant for full sun or high filtered light shade, easy to grow, and one, again, that's been around and performed for many years. And I think if you're looking for one cherry, this is one good place to start. One of my favorite small flowering trees that have grown for many, many years, this is the Oyama magnolia, or Magnolia sieboldii. And in particular, the one I'm looking at right now is Magnolia sieboldii colossus, an easy cultivar name to remember. Oyama magnolia is an unusual magnolia. It's a deciduous, spring-blooming magnolia, but unlike the typical Magnolia stellata and other of those very early blooming deciduous types that get hit by a freeze or frost oftentimes in the spring, this one blooms about a month later after the leaves have come out, so it never gets hit by a frost or a freeze. The blooms are very subtle. They don't open and cover the plant the way they do with something like a star magnolia, but they bloom over a long time. You might get a month or so of bloom out of a good specimen of Magnolia sieboldii. The blooms are typically about 4 inches in diameter. Beautiful, clear, white, almost look like they're carved out of a piece of wax with a rosy red stamen center. And they hang down under the branches in the garden, and they give you this beautiful, unique texture. A great one to plant along a walk where you'll walk under it and look up into the blooms. Now, many times we have a cultivar of a plant out there, and sometimes you find that the cultivar is really not all that much better than the straight species. But Colossus is really head and shoulders above the straight species, a much better garden plant. It's an August Kerr introduction. It has 3 times the genetic material of a standard Magnolia Sieboldii, and what that does to the plant is it gives it larger blooms, more substantial blooms, better vigor, and even more substantial, heavier-duty leaves, which is very important for this plant because the one knock on the straight Magnolia Sieboldii is that the leaves can get a little tattered late in the summer. They don't hold up well in dry weather. But Colossus, having a heavier constitution of the leaves, looks better through a much longer period of the summer. It holds up better, great vigor, and it even imparts some double flowering character to the blooms. So Magnolia Sieboldii, Colossus, an outstanding small flowering tree for the garden. One small flowering tree I've always tried to use in gardens whenever I've built a garden or managed a garden somewhere is the red buckeye, Aesculus pavia. Now, this might be the most common choice of plant nerds everywhere, but it's a tree that fills a really neat niche in the landscape. It blooms in sort of late spring, early summer with a bright red spike. And what I love about the timing of it is that it's perfectly timed in most places to be one of those early nectar sources for the returning ruby-throated hummingbirds. When a lot of the other common hummingbird plants have really started to bloom in the garden. It makes about a 15-foot tree, sort of an upright oval, sort of coarse texture, light to medium green leaves. Really nothing to write home about in the summer in the garden, but it's those late spring, early summer blooms that are so wonderful, and it's such a vivid red color. Great Southeast North American native for sun or a lightly shaded site. Very drought tolerant, very durable, very easy to grow, and fun to grow from seed because like all buckeyes, it has that great big buckeye seed or nut that you can grow them from. Now, all the buckeyes are notorious for dropping their leaves late in the summer and exfoliating early. Quite honestly, I just love the blooms so much, I figure I'm on vacation in August anyway, like most people, and so I don't have to look at it in the garden. But one of my favorite plants, a great native in the southeast, will grow zone 4 to zone 8 at least, and a really adaptable plant for the garden.
So listening to that whole thing, I think we should have a new section of the podcast called Everything Sounds Better with a Southern Accent.
Oh, yes, and we could do our favorite Southern authors, including Paul Cappiello. I like it. Let's do it.